everybody, my name is Rebecca. I'm a grade 12 student, and today I'm going to be doing a presentation about Ottawa, just a summary of events. I'm going to be speaking in English. It's my mother tongue, so it'll be easier for me, as well as there are a lot of kids in the audience, and I think they would probably prefer it if I spoke in English, so I'm just going to take it away. Alrighty, so firstly, some important things to know is when the War of Ottawa took place, the Battle of Ottawa took place. So firstly, it took place on March 1st, 1896. So that is basically next week. Ethiopia is the only African country that was able to resist European colonization, and Italian interest in East Africa started in 1869. So I have a table of contents here, but since there's no screen, I'm just gonna keep going as well. Okay, so why did the Battle of Ottawa take place? Or rather, the war. First of all, during the 18th and 19th century, there was this phenomenon called the Scramble for Africa. And so basically, European powers were racing to colonize African countries. And some main reasons for this was, firstly, resources. They lacked resources in their own countries and they needed natural resources, so they wanted to get it from African countries. Another reason was racial superiority. They had a superiority complex. They thought that they were racially better than other countries, specifically African countries, so they wanted to, that this motivated them to colonize. And lastly was nationalism. So there was rivalries between different countries and they wanted to show who was best, so they showed that by colonizing. And so why did Italy specifically want to invade Ethiopia? So I already mentioned that in 1869 Italy took a small port in the Red Sea. In 1887 Italy controlled some parts of Eritrea and Somaliland. And we know that these areas are close to Ethiopia in proximity. And after that, in the Battle of Galai, Ethiopian troops ambushed and destroyed the Italian colony. And so there were disputes between the Ethiopians and the Italians. So this resulted in them having to settle these disputes, and they signed a treaty called the Treaty of Wuchal. Basically, in this treaty, there was conditions, and both these conditions were written in Italian and they were written in Amharic. And the interesting thing to note here is that the Italian version of this treaty stated that Ethiopia is a colony of Italy, and so this ensued war, and so this is why the battle took place. I've also written here that, notably, Russia was the only European power that recognized Ethiopia's independence, and this is pretty important because Russia supported Ethiopia in terms of ammunition. So, there's that. Okay, so nextly, how did it occur? I put some important figures. My first one is General Oreste Baratieri. Not a Habesha name, he's Italian. I have pictures here. He has if you want to search him up later, he has a large mustache. And he's the Italian commander of the army. He was the head, and so he led the Italians in the war. Menelik II, I believe he's over there. He was the emperor of Ethiopia, and he led us to the victory. Taitu Betul, she's also over there. She is the wife of Menelik. She is exceptionally intelligent. She was a military strategist, and because of that, they're okay. So they were going to negotiate with the Ethiopians. Were going to negotiate with the Italians on certain terms, and she opposed that completely. She was like, no negotiations. We're going to settle this through war, and that's why there was a war. And I've written here that her presence also helped us be victorious. Lastly, I've included Ras Alula. Some of you guys may know him. He was the head general of the Ethiopian army. So if you guys want to take a note of this, General Aroste Baratieri, the mustache guy, he's the Italian head commander. And Rasabula, if you search him up, he has this nice military crown. It's made of hair, I think. And he was the head general of the Ethiopian army. Alrighty, so we're finally going into the timeline of events. So, 1894, the war officially broke out. In 1895, Menelik assembled a massive army. This army was huge. There was 200,000 men. And some people might think that we just had spears. We also had rifles, and I already stated that they were supplied by the Russian, by Russia. And another interesting note is that Menelik led the Italians to believe that Ethiopia was an undeveloped country and that it lacked the material means to fight. And this is very important, as this is the reason why the Italians lost. They were outnumbered. There was only 6,000 Italian troops in comparison to around 200,000 Ethiopian troops. So they did not have a good time. Alrighty, so 1896 is the year of the Battle of Adwa. I've already stated that the Ethiopian army had 200,000 troops. General Baratieri, remember the mustache guy? He found out about this, and he wanted to retreat, obviously. And retreating, unfortunately, wasn't an option because the prime minister did not allow him to retreat. That would look bad. And so they went on with the fighting. And so the Italian troops were divided into 3 brigades. That's just a fancy word for groups. And the problem with these 3 groups is that they had, obviously the military had maps. These maps were outdated, so the groups were too far apart. And so what happened was, one brigade would come and they were attacking the army. Then that brigade was completely annihilated. And so the 2nd brigade came and they were trying to give backup. And then that brigade also became annihilated. And then the 3rd one tried to retreat, and then they couldn't. So the whole Italian army was destroyed, and the rest retreated to Eritrea. And that is basically it. And so lastly, we're going to look at the outcome of the war. So I have some statistics here. It would have been helpful by the screen, but generally, the Italians, there were 18,000. Excuse me, I said 6,000 before. It was actually 18,000, so a little more. But much less than the Ethiopians, which was 200,000. I've noted here that Ethiopia only lost 10% of their men, whereas Italy lost 60%, so clearly we were victorious. Alrighty, and so lastly, I'm just gonna continue on this topic of the outcome of the war. The victory of Adwa can be interpreted in many different ways. Most people saw it as a way to discredit Italians' military strength because they lost. Additionally, some found that since the Ethiopians won, that they might not truly be black. So some people thought that way as well. Another outcome of this war was, this is just a historical event. In Italy, there were mass riots and protests because they lost the war. It was really embarrassing, and so a lot of people were unhappy. I'd like to conclude that the victory of Adwa, this is very important to Ethiopian peoples because this granted our freedom, and in general, these freedoms include our freedom to speak any native Ethiopian language. Ethiopia has many languages: Amharic, Tigrinya, Guraginya, Orominya, etc. And we can speak these languages because we aren't colonized. Ethiopia is also rich in natural and human resources, and we can use these resources because there isn't a higher power that is going to take advantage of us. Ethiopia, we're Christian, Muslim, there's many religions, but we are a religious country, and we can practice our faith thanks to being free, and we can develop and promote our culture because of that as well. Ethiopians, we are prideful of our nation. We never feel like we are below any race or country because we weren't colonized. I think that's a very important thing to note. We sometimes forget why we're so prideful. It's because we weren't colonized. Because we have that freedom, and we've kept that. I had some interesting music videos that I was gonna play. But for the kids at home, ask your parents to to play for you guys Teddy Afro Tukurso. It's an amazing music video. I always feel super prideful when I watch it. And ask your children how they feel when they watch it. That was my first music video. My second one is called Adowa. And it's sung by Gigi. It's very beautiful. It's very different from Teddy Afro's Tukurso. It's much more somber in its atmosphere. And I'd like you guys to show these songs to your children so that they can enjoy them. Okay, so other than that, I'm done with the presentation. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
So Rubka in the lives are the future leaders of our community. So I know with their leadership we will reach the peak. So I'm sure. Thank you very much. We really appreciate your presentation. Thank you. እግዚአብሔር ይስጥሽ። እግዚአብሔር ያሳድግልን። በጣም እግዚአብሔር ይስጥልን። ቤተሰቦችሽን እግዚአብሔር ይባርክልን። ከዚህ ቀጥሎ